Right there, baby. Beach Street, R&B. Rip that bad boy out. Rip it out.
I'm gonna put it back.
Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Wiles.
Here.
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Councilman Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tremont. Mayor Burnett.
Here. I like it. My computer wants to restart. We just started the meeting. Item 4, proposed trail projects. Jake?
Tim will be offering up some comments and then open up for council discussion.
Okay.
All right, Tim Berman, Community Development. This is the update council requested a few weeks ago regarding the ongoing St. Johns River to Sea Loop project. We have the workshop agenda here for tonight. Basically is to go over the trail route that's currently being evaluated by FDOT as they do the ongoing project development environmental study for this loop project, which is known as the PD&E from kind of the rest of the PowerPoint. Status of that PD&E study. We'll also go over some questions and concerns received from citizens on the proposed trail route. Go over alternate trail route options within the city for this loop project. Also then open up to public for public comment then. And the last portion of the workshop we'd like is for council. Last time we spoke with, was indicated to use that route then in the PD&E study. We'd like for some type of verification to either continue using that route as the ongoing study then. So that's kind of the agenda we want to go through, and kind of the last thing we want to accomplish as part of this for tonight then. So going over kind of the route, how that was kind of came about then. Going back about 2014, Port Orange and council at that time had requested staff to put more emphasis on developing the trail projects throughout the city of Port Orange, more emphasis on developing trails and larger sidewalk network connecting our parks together. Staff started looking at this area. We came up with a number of larger trails that could be developed within the city of Port Orange. One was the Halifax Riverside Trail, which is in our comp plan since around 2010 to go down Halifax Drive. The other one was the Spruce Creek Road Trail, which is existing for the most part and only has a few gaps that need to be filled in. We also looked at east-west trails connecting essentially the new west developments to the east side. That would be the Madeline Trail, which is under design right now, or our PD&E study too, and a central trail, which is mostly constructed, which needs some gaps there. We also have a number of large sidewalks throughout the city, which these would tie into. Central Park, Williamson Boulevard, of course, the Dunlop Bridge to get you over to Beachside. Those all tie into our existing residential neighborhoods to kind of form that network there. That's kind of what we started doing in 2014. Again, like we said, that Halifax Riverside Trail has been something that's been kind of discussed about and studied, going back to 2004. There was a traffic calming and linear park study back then that looked at something similar to what we're, FDOT is looking at now. There's been included by council, requested that included in the comprehensive plan. There's also, council had directed us to work on a application to the River Sea TPO for a feasibility study, I believe back in 2015 or 16 then. And then while that was being ranked by the TPO, that's when FDOT came to us and indicated there was a P&E study going on for this loop project, which was the exact same thing we were asking for, except in order to do an evaluation report or evaluation study, we wouldn't have to pay 10% of the match there. So we thought at least it saves us some money moving forward then. That's basically, in the last year and a half then, as council had the direction to move that to allow FDOT to do the PD&E study for that Halifax route there. So that's kind of how we got to where DOT is looking at it. The trail route itself that basically they are looking at consists of coming into Port Orange from South Daytona along Saul's Road there. It would utilize existing 8-foot sidewalk that was just constructed on McDonald Road, tying to the existing Charles Street sidewalk. Get you over to Ridgewood Avenue. There it would cross the street into Riverwalk Park. From Riverwalk Park, it would head south on Halifax Drive and would cut across into Ridgewood Avenue at the unimproved right-of-way, which is just north of Seminole Avenue. Also, too, we still have in the plans we've requested DOT, if this route goes through, is the to look at doing a pedestrian bridge across Dunlawton Avenue for that intersection. We've got to work with the property owner on the east, I guess it'd be the south side of Dunlawton for some possible right-of-way. The city owns the northern property, so we have right of way that way for a bridge then, if it continued in this pathway then. Again, the PD&E study is to evaluate the route option. There's no design yet, there's no construction plans. It's to evaluate the route option, to nominate it, to basically eventually be selected for design. So we're in the very early preliminary stages. We don't have full design plans here, so it's really conceptual that DOT's working on then. The PD study kind of stresses from DOT is putting emphasis on constructing the trail. They have large trails. This one consists of the St. Johns River Sea Loop around 6 counties. Their focus is to make those gaps complete and create around a 300-mile trail network there. So that's why they're kind of picking these small gaps and working with municipalities to complete that gap segment there. So that's kind of the what started that on it then. Again, from the city standpoint, it had put that in the comp plan as a recreation opportunity, trying to get more recreation opportunities on the east side of the city, which opens it up for basically people who want to jog, bike, ride on a designated path there on that side then. So that's the major point that has the construction of the trail would pertain to the area along Halifax and Riverside Drive. The current layout here is basically due to right-of-way constraints that we have in there. We have right-of-way anywhere between 33 feet to 50 feet in areas. Is that a portion of it, essentially from Meeker until about Niver, would need to be a one-way roadway segment then. The areas that are currently shown in yellow could remain as two-way. Those are still, the area by Dunlawton and Meeker is still up for discussion. That could be converted to one-way. The reason why that was shown as two-way is that's a commercial node in our comp plan. If that ever develops as commercial land there, more access back there. But as we were talking, that could be something that we have a commercial developer add the additional lane later on, then that could be one way if we wanted to consider that then. The travel lanes are unique on here then. Essentially what would be done is a southbound one-way road, essentially from Dunlawton to Commonwealth Boulevard. At that point you'd be able to turn right on Commonwealth Boulevard to use the traffic light to go north or south on US 1. The small segment from Niver to Commonwealth is shown to be a one-way north segment. There was a lot of concern and questions raised basically in terms of the subdivisions that were in that area to make sure that they had a traffic light that they could get to, so they could access US 1 there. That's why that one segment, essentially from Commonwealth to Niver, is one way. And again, the yellow areas, there is enough right-of-way. We're able to get the trail in, maintaining the two-way road segment. And this is just kind of a detail that we've kind of worked up from the concept that DOT has provided. We added some colors to just kind of give a graphic depiction of what this could look like. Essentially, this is going to be the southbound travel lane, which would remain. It'd be at least a minimum of 10 feet wide. There is proposed to be a 5-foot median separator that would be located between the travel lane and the proposed trail. This is to remain as stabilized grass. This is in order to allow for if fire trucks had to go down, the stabilized grass would be designed to support the trucks then, or if cars were turning out onto it, it would be able to sustain the vehicles occasionally turning onto that then. Then you would have the shared use path on essentially where the northbound travel lane is. What the plan is to remove essentially 5 feet of pavement from the middle of the road and essentially transfer it to the shoulder of the existing roadway to get that travel lane. What that does is it basically kind of does not increase the amount of impervious, which helps in terms of drainage on that side, not needing as much drainage because we're not adding a lot more impervious on that side. So that's kind of what the plan is, and this is a conceptual drawing of what that could look like going down the segments of Halifax proposed to be proposed to be one way. This is another kind of depiction too, basically used off of the property appraiser's office to kind of show that what Riverside Drive and Halifax Drive looks like in terms of basically you have the city's public right-of-way, essentially crossing between the private property. So we would not be utilizing any private property as part of this project. It's all utilizing the existing city's right-of-way. And it would show basically essentially the travel lane, and then the blue would be where the trail would be located. And property owners would still have access to the property that they own on the other side of the road there to access the water. And so that's kind of where we are with the design and the concept behind it so far. Going on to the questions and concerns for the trail within the right-of-way that we've received. Again, I'm sure there are basically others that will be presented here tonight. These are just a majority of the ones that we've gotten, throughout the emails and calls there. So we just want to kind of package them up here to go over them on that one. Use of private property, as we stated before, it's all to remain within the city's own public right-of-way on the trail project. It is not to utilize private property.
So there'll be no property acquisitions?
No property, no. Now there are parts that basically that the parkage, which is the green area on the other side of the pavement up to the property lines, which is kind of illustrated in this graphic here, which is just a conceptual graphic. That red shaded area is generally the right-of-way area. So there are areas that are grass that are considered the parkage, and that is city property there. Flooding, as we said before, DOTs and what we've worked with is to minimize any increase in impervious area. That way we're not impacting flooding in that way. This project is not designed to correct flooding that's already occurring there right now. And the intent is basically, as this goes through, any plans that would be there would be able to address the impervious created by this project. But if there are flooding issues now, this project is not there to correct those in this case then. Access to private land on the east side of the city's right-of-way. Again, if the trail goes through, people that have land on the east side of the trail route or the city's right-of-way will still be able to use that. They will still be able to park there. They will be able to travel across the trail on that side then and park there. They would be required to park parallel because it still would be a right-of-way and on that side then. So that's not taking away any of that then. Also too, the design is not to have any type of curbing or surfaces where basically people that wanted to walk across there, it would be the same situation they've got now. So they'd be able to walk, wheel things across, cart things across, essentially the same type of asphalt pavement they've got right now.
So no curbing?
No curbing is proposed on this project.
No
right?
raised medians?
No. It'd just be the grassed area, would be all that then, and that would be of course mowed, and would be the same. And again, it would be stabilized too, so we can ensure vehicles that need to go on there, so it'd be a hard surface to go across there.
Hey Tim, pull
Yeah.
that mic closer to you.
Sorry about that. The parking of lawn maintenance and delivery vehicles. Again, the parkage would still be available. That is currently where a lot of cars, throughout the city of Port Orange, vehicles park in that parkage area. That's the area between essentially the edge of the pavement, and in some cases on the segment, there's a sidewalk there. That would be able to park in there. Also, too, there's still parkage available on the east side in a large number of those lots there that the trucks can go over on that side, on the riverside then too. That would still be open. Again, it would be basically, as code requires, a parallel parking along that area then. The one-way street direction, as we stated earlier, the direction of the street currently right now is essentially from Dunlawton to Commonwealth is a southbound, and then there's a one-way segment from Niver to Commonwealth is north. We are working with the post office on the delivery aspect of that. As the one-way travel north, there could be some delivery issues with the post office then, but we are working with them. I think we have 6 homes and a mobile home park in that area to see what we can do in terms of ensuring safe mail delivery to those locations. So staff is currently working with the post office on that item right now. Slow moving traffic, garbage trucks and mail vehicles and a one-way street, there would be no room to go around those. However, again, basically those would be, specific times during the day or specific times during the week then. And there will be, multiple mid-block crossings then. So after a certain, period of time, they'd be able to either get to the house that you're going to or utilize the side street to get back to Ridgewood. I think the largest block in that area is about a quarter mile between side streets then. Maintenance of trail, this is a requirement that would be the city of Port Orange to maintain it. That includes similar to maintaining the road base that we do right now. We would maintain the one-way road segment. We would maintain the trail itself, along with that 5-foot grass median down the middle then. So that would be the city's maintenance responsibility, along with any type of drainage improvements that are put in for the trail itself. Increase in vehicular traffic and people. In terms of the one-way, that hope is basically that allows to try to minimize some of the cut-through traffic that goes through that area. We've talked about before, while this project could include it, there's other aspects of traffic calming that could be added onto this project, which the city would have to do, which could possibly through the TPO, which could further try to decrease the amount of vehicular traffic on that area while making it safer for pedestrians that are using the trail. In terms of increase in people, that's kind of what the you know, in terms of the comp plan, what they envisioned when we go back and read through that was to provide an opportunity for recreation there to increase the people who are looking for recreation activities to be able to use that area. And then tree removal. There are a number of palm trees along that side, basically east of that area, about that 5 foot, that would most likely have to come down on that. There, we would work with, you know, if it goes through with DOT, try to minimize as much trees as possible that have to come down. But there are a number of existing palm trees within the right-of-way that most likely would come down as part of this project then.
Seem to be quite a few. Do we have a number?
We don't have a number, basically DOT hasn't gotten that number then, but when you drive down there, there's a number of, you know, palm trees
Yeah.
within our existing right-of-way that we would be having to remove as part of this project then.
Tim.
Nice too.
Even though we don't have a number, are we talking a handful or are we talking dozens and dozens?
A couple dozen.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We don't know yet because the trail hasn't been designed. So
Again,
let's not come up with a number, please.
Again, the trail width, we said it could vary from 8 to 12 feet then. So in some areas, basically that it could be, you know, we might have to go in due to other constraints, which would save the trees there. Again, that kind of comes in with tree surveys and the design work then. So counting every tree, there might be a few out there then, that might be the count then.
Okay.
But like we've talked with DOT, we're trying to basically get the trail within the right of way, work with the constraints that we have, and work with basically existing trees like we do every other, you know, summer trail.
Sure.
I mean, look at the Spruce Creek Trail. That originally was proposed, basically go right down the middle and cut out every tree. And we worked and basically navigated that through a number of trees
Yeah.
and removing some of them. But we have a history of working with basically design and trail to try to minimize the amount of trees that get removed.
Those that we would have to remove, what would be the mitigation requirement? I know they're palm trees, but
The palm trees, basically the mitigation requirements typically go for your shade, your specimen trees, like your oaks and stuff like that then. So I don't think we'd have a, you know, large mitigation requirement for those palm trees being removed then. And also too, it could be something that basically as we work to try to, we talked about that tree mitigation bank, that could be something basically utilized as part of the project, as DOT would not pay for tree replacement, but we could look at tying into that mitigation bank money from other trees that have been removed on private property to supplement, you know, trees in that area, whether palms or shade trees could be part of the project that the city would have to do. It wouldn't be part of DOT's project.
We put oak trees by the
I'm just saying,
trail.
basically, you know, some people here like palms, some people don't like palms, so I don't want, you know, it'd be something we'd evaluate to see which tree would go. Everyone that's out there pretty much is a palm tree along there, so we could replant the same if we wanted to.
I got you.
I think that would be something, if we got to that point, you know, down the road, we would be evaluating that once we go over a couple more hurdles then. So jumping to the number of options that we have available, essentially we looked at it, we've got about 4 options to look at. We've got the current option, which we just talked about, which is identified in blue. We have the option 2, which is in green. That was the original one about a year ago. That came down essentially the same route until Commonwealth, then cut across Commonwealth Boulevard, then extended down Spruce Creek Road, then to Nova Road, and south to New Smyrna Beach. The orange is the existing Spruce Creek Trail, which we have 2 or 3 small gaps that have to be completed on there then, and that would kind of connect that whole area from Sauls essentially down to the Rose Bay Bridge area to go south to New Smyrna Beach. And the 4th option was one that was discussed with some of the residents and the DOT consultant. However, they looked at that one. Basically, essentially, it was putting an 8-foot wide sidewalk on the west side of the roadway. When they looked at that in terms of the additional not being able to decrease impervious because you're adding more impervious there by the sidewalk and not removing
That's
that
right.
5-foot median
Yeah.
then, along with the utility improvements that were there. A lot of the utility lines run that way. That cost basically to DOT was not a feasible option. They indicated that to us that they would not set aside as feasible then. So we did put that as option 4 since that was discussed then.
And is that the only option that would have maintained a 2-way street?
Yeah, we actually looked at too, basically, you know, either putting the trail on the other side. And what happens is basically that when you're doing the, when you're looking for, as you start to shift the roadway, that triggers a lot more review from St. John's and more permitting that's required. And at that point, it makes it infeasible because of that additional permitting and additional stormwater review, because they see as when you do adding pedestrian areas, you're not adding pavement that will basically essentially collect motor oil, gasoline then, because it's basically non-motor there. So there's different criteria. Once DOT said we started shifting that roadway, we got into a whole nother level of permitting and costs that basically, as they saw it, were not feasible for that stretch of road then. So we had asked them to evaluate both options, essentially a trail on either side, maintaining that two-way roadway.
I would like to clarify for the record, there are two options that keep Halifax a two-way road. Option 4 and option 3, Spruce Creek. There are two options.
Okay.
One of them does not traverse Halifax Drive.
Tim, why did the green line get bumped from the first to the second option? What was DOT's thinking for bumping that to option 2?
One of the things that was discussed was basically that with our segment, with the number of crossings that we had on our trail, essentially as you cut across down the Commonwealth Boulevard, down the Spruce into Nova there was a large number of crossings, essentially streets, driveways. And as DOT was looking at the trail segment and basically was looking for a continuous pathway without those interruptions and essentially having to be aware of cars backing out and stuff like that then. So that's why the shift made it to be kind of more keep it on the east side here and continue down as much as we could on the water side then, what kind of made that shift then. But that could still go back to being that green line, as we already have an existing sidewalk on Commonwealth Boulevard, I believe an 8-foot wide there. We are currently have a project ongoing right now for Spruce Creek Road to construct an 8-foot wide sidewalk on the east side of Spruce Creek, in front of the mobile homes there on Maplewood then. And then it would tie into the existing, I believe, 7 or 8 foot wide sidewalk that's already existing on Nova Road then. That again would essentially result in the one lane of Halifax from essentially Dunlawton down to Commonwealth then, and then the rest would remain untouched.
And why does the DOT consider US 1 not a viable option through there?
And I think basically we had looked at utilizing the trail. I mean, we'd have to look to see if we had enough right of way on that side then. Again, that comes into the number of crossings that you have. There's a large number of driveway crossings on that then. And there is bike trails on US 1, but as we had talked about and the consensus we've got from council when we were looking for these trail projects were to find more trails that the family that had the 5-year-old who's learned how to ride the bike could go out and ride on those then.
Yeah.
Versus basically riding on a 8-foot sidewalk kind of to move on Ridgewood then. Is kind of the where we were going with the trails, and the ones that we've been trying to locate and develop here are more for that kind of the passive recreation side then. I think basically we've got bike lanes on Ridgewood Avenue, which are more for kind of the person who would be commuting via the bike, who doesn't mind driving with traffic then. This is more trying to segregate it from heavier traffic then in an area that's still able to utilize some of the improvements that we have on Ridgewood, such as parking to get down to there then. So that's kind of why I think this city council in the past and stuff like that in 2014 in the comp plan had moved it to try to be on that riverside, that Halifax Drive, just for kind of that little bit less speeds and more passive in nature then.
Okay.
So again, these are the the 4 options that we've got to the 3 options that we've got to work from then, and then like we said, basically the intent of the agenda was to complete the first 4 items then, and then turn over to public comment. And then as we said, basically we'd like some type of verification or recommendation on the route to move forward. That way we can let FDOT know. They are planning to try to wrap the PD&E study up shortly here. That way it could be submitted for that request to get funding, so it could possibly start the design process in the future then.
Can I go back to, sorry.
What would the timeline look like coming out of this evening for whatever it is that action we take?
I think basically the PD action we take, we'd get that to DOT. I think they want to wrap the PD&E study up this summer. And then at that point it would be submitted for District 5 to basically decide whether to accept that recommendation, that PD&E study, and then they'd have to assign design funds to it. That they did not indicate to us a time frame as to when design funds could be established there for kind of that Halifax route. So I think the main thing they want to do is just get that PD&E study completed and pushed off there. That way we kind of know here's the route that's selected, and then we can get a timeline for design later on then.
So really it's at that point, possibly the end of summer, we'd know what the engineered plans would look like at earliest.
It'd just be a very conceptual plan. It would not be the engineer plans at that time.
Okay.
Then those would come down the future, later
Well,
on
down
down
the
the
road.
road. That's when you're going to be looking at those narrow areas, how they're designing the road segment. This might just be a conceptual plan that just shows
Okay.
the general line where that trail would go.
That makes more sense.
The narrow areas that we know there are constraints in, those would be kind of flushed out more with the design when you get the survey work and more information on that part of the project then. And
Mayor,
it-
as you, I'm sorry to interrupt Tim, similar to the Pioneer Interchange, if there's any alternatives, like options,
Right.
we have a few choke points. We'll have another meeting, a public meeting to discuss those, if it comes to that, where the options are presented and we all get together and decide which one's best, similar to the interchange and.
You knew where I was going
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. So this isn't the last time. After it gets designed, if there are options to be presented, FDOT will give them to council to look at and for the public to comment on as we do with all our other FDOT projects.
Because quite frankly, until we get through that, and we're gonna hear a lot about what the concerns are. but
Absolutely.
I have no clue until we would get to that
That-
stage.
that's-
if
that's
some
why
of
we-
those can be overcome or not.
Yeah, and that's why we are very, very general in our statements right now, because it seems like there's a few people that know exactly how many trees are gonna be cut down. We have no idea, nor does FDOT. We don't know a lot about a lot until we get the
Yeah.
design done.
Okay.
And we see what it
Some
looks
idea,
like.
but
Yeah,
not-
some idea. We know that some are gotta be cut because it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But these guys can get pretty ingenious with their engineering, and maybe it'll be less, maybe it'll be exactly 280, I don't know. But I'm not gonna speculate till we get the design done.
Okay.
I think it's critical to hear the public's concerns before we give direction to, obviously, FDOT and Scalar in terms of which PD&E study we want them to do. We want them to do it on Spruce Creek, we want them to do it on Halifax, or where do we want them to do the study? Because that's what they're going to hopefully leave with
Right.
tonight. We'll know more after we hear from the public, I'm sure.
Couldn't agree more.
And Mayor, one follow-on comment. I'm doing sign language with Heather over there. As I understand it, regardless of which way we go, both PD&E studies could be wrapped up. If you went with the option 3, Spruce Creek, if you didn't like the Halifax one way and
Okay.
decided to change direction. So it doesn't get delayed by
Either way.
taking an alternative.
In the study, in the portion that, the option on Halifax, if we're going, that would require a one-way street, are we bound by the direction of the road based on which lane we choose? Or could that go one way or the other and we have some say-so in that?
We're looking for basically in terms of travel direction,
Travel direction.
travel
exactly.
direction would be up to the city on that side. Then we want to basically essentially make the trail on the east side there. So basically, there's no driveways to go through then. But the travel lane would be up. We'd be able to continue studying that then. The reason why we suggested the southbound is basically during the mail delivery there. There's where the mail truck would go down there, would still allow them to hand deliver the mail to the various mailboxes then. But again, like we said, we've got that one small segment we've got to work with the post office on. We could continue working with them to see if there's other options there. But I don't think we have to set the exact, direction of travel right now.
You know, when I was a kid, I'm sorry, I just remember when we all had our mailboxes on our houses, and they would have to get out and walk of course, down there we got some of those very, very long driveways. My point was, the concern is that the greater about traffic coming off of Dunlawton and into the neighborhood, and we wanted to avoid that by making traffic flow to the
Right.
north. Obviously, mail delivery.
Yeah, we can look at that. We just want to, we still haven't got with the post office. We knew that would be one of the major issues in terms of mail delivery then. But that's something that we would continue to evaluate if we go that route then, as to the direction of the travel direction then.
Giving our mailmen extra bottles of water during the summer wouldn't be a bad thing then, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim, was there was some dialogue, I thought,
Sorry.
regarding the, were you going next?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Some dialogue regarding the cost for the Halifax and the timing of the funds that might be available if you use Halifax versus Spruce Creek and Nova. Can you get into a little bit of that?
Yeah,
I
well,
know-
Spruce Creek, there's only about few sidewalk gaps that need to be completed there. For the most part, we've got a pretty substantial sidewalk network. I think there's the area just south of Oak Street that, when you're based on Spruce Creek, south of Oak Street, there's a gap there, probably about 300 to 400 feet that would need to be filled in. There's some right-of-way acquisition that would be needed on that part then. And then there is to the north, then after you cross there, north of the post office, there's unimproved right-of-way that the city has. So we'd have to basically construct a trail through that unimproved right-of-way, and that would tie into essentially that sidewalk network that already exists on McDonald Road then, which would then tie north to Solid Street then. So I think those were the two gaps then on Spruce Creek. Again, we're pretty much working on that third gap already. You guys, the council approved the
right, yeah.
construction of that,
Can
and
we
that will
put
be going to
map
bid.
up again?
Yeah.
With the 4 options, please?
That'd be going out to bid here shortly. So we'll be getting that third gap, I think, that we talked about. Should be wrapped up here by the end of the year then. And that's kind of right in this general area here. Right in there across the street from
Maplewood.
basically Winn-Dixie and stuff like that then.
Yeah.
And Maplewood
Okay.
is where the one gap is right now, which we've already got a project going forward. City's funding that one right now to get constructed. The other part is right here through Oak Street, I believe right in here.
Yep.
That would be another gap that would be completed. And then up here, north of the post office, north of Herbert Street, there is unimproved right-of-way that we'd have to go through here, similar to on the Halifax then. And we'd be able to tie into Herbert Street and then get up to McDonald Road sidewalk then. So those would be the 3 gap areas that would be needed. For the most part, we've got the right-of-way there. So in terms of basically just the amount of work that needs to be done, I think that's why basically it'd be cost less and be more timely in terms of getting that completed then.
So we could actually complete that section of the trail fairly quickly, and FDOT probably has the funds available to do that in a relatively short period of time, where we don't really know how much it's going to cost for Halifax yet, or whether FDOT has those funds available, right?
That's what FDOT indicated to us then.
Right.
It's, now, one thing I'm unclear about here is, once you get to Dunlawton, how we hook up with McDonald Road, because McDonald Road terminates at Herbert Street.
If you come down McDonald Road, basically it wraps around, basically we got the new sidewalk, we wrap around McDonald Road and it ties into Charles Street right by the school.
Uh-huh.
And there's an 8-foot sidewalk then. So Charles Street would take you up to Ridgewood Avenue. On Ridgewood Avenue, you'd come down.
I got you. I was
slow-
looking at,
Sorry.
was the third option.
Okay, third up, which, that's orange?
Street.
If you're coming down Spruce Creek.
Okay.
Tie-in.
Yeah, there's some,
Yeah, right away.
there's some right of way. There's gonna be some sidewalk construction. There's gotta be some crosswalks there, in that north area then. The one thing with that area is that, it's not the larger streets then, so we could do crosswalks to get you, across those streets in that area then.
Okay.
But DOT had looked at that option up the north area, and they felt that there was enough right of way to construct the necessary trail width through that area.
Tim, take me back again a while back, about the slow moving traffic on the one-way road. Should there be a one-way passageway on Halifax? What happens if a big truck is in the road? I think, clarify what you said earlier. I want to
I
make
think
sure I
we
heard
talked about
correctly.
basically, the concern with the garbage trucks, moving trucks. There's going to be, those type of vehicles that basically typically now park on the side of the park in one of the lanes, and everyone goes around them that way there. Typically with a one-way street, those vehicles would have to be moved over to the parkage area, which is that grass area, which you see, a number of other, throughout other city rolls in Port Orange, they park in that area. This where those vehicles that do the delivery, the lawn maintenance, stuff like that, would be having to park in there. It's going to be a learning process with anything new and changing. As we talk with other cities that have basically done trail projects, converted to one-lane roads, it basically it's ongoing, to make these changes, and it's year for to comply, and basically people to pick on it. So it's gonna be a change there. I think we basically as we work through it then on that side then, and then in terms of the slower moving vehicles, we had concerns that I'm gonna be behind a garbage truck the whole way down there. There are going to be cases, basically in that case, where you may be behind a garbage truck for a few stops then before you can make your turn on that one. That's, there's, no way around to get around the garbage truck then.
And Mayor, might I remind you that there's plenty of subdivisions here in Port Orange that allow parking on the side of the road, where it's pretty much one lane in the morning when the garbage truck comes. So it's not out of the ordinary for other folks around the city to be stuck behind a garbage truck for 500 yards or 1,000 yards or so before they can squirt out or turn around. So it would be an inconvenience, but this wouldn't be the only
Live
place.
in the back end of my subdivision. I
So
had
you're-
that
you've been
experience.
stuck.
It's a lot of fun.
That
It's a
doesn't
sweet
wanna
smell.
make the inconvenience where it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay. What other questions do we have? Scott, Drew?
Was it you or Jake, I think, said the two options that keep Riverside Drive and Halifax Drive two-way was option 3 and option 4?
Yes.
Yes, option 3 and 4, and I believe FDOT has determined option 4 is to be not feasible for them.
That would be
Cost
the
prohibitive.
that would
Cost
put the,
prohibitive.
that would put the sidewalk or the trail basically in their front yard.
In the parkage in front of their
Okay,
homes
that-
on the
okay,
west
so
side
that's
of
the- okay.
Halifax.
Okay, so, all right, scratch that. Okay, answers it. Thank you.
Okay.
And we walked that a couple of weeks ago with some of the citizens that live down there.
Yeah.
And there were areas that it made sense, but the farther south you went, right, John, the farther south you went, it kind of got ugly and
there are a lot
then
of- there's a lot
infeasible.
of telephone poles.
Well,
on that side,
not
so
to
we-
mention the utilities that would have to
Utility
be
poles in there.
underground it
Okay, okay.
a lot per mile.
I think it interesting that that we do have enough right-of-way around the apartment complex to be able to get Spruce Creek through
Yeah.
back to 6th Street and McDonald.
Mhm.
I did not realize, I figured that we'd be taking a nice east route to come back west on Charles. That's nice.
Mhm.
I also know that we've got 2 gaps on Spruce Creek Road that, yeah, I was one of those parents that would not take small kids on the bike path on Ridgewood. I'd use Spruce Creek. But we would always have those 2 big gaps there. It would be nice to get those plugged in.
And like I said, that one, is one that we have on our TPO list to work on applications too. In addition to this, was to fill that gap there. So that, something, that trail has been on our radar as we build that network there since we started about 2014. So that was something that we were looking to move forward regardless, with bringing it to council to get that filled,
Yeah.
that gap filled.
Okay.
Okay.
Before we go to the public, I want to make sure we get all our questions answered up here.
Could we come back to us after that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we get everything flushed out because they need to hear this before they comment.
Jim, I know it's conceptual, but is there anything that you've seen in the concept planning of this that would change any access at all to any private properties on either side of the road whatsoever? I mean, so if folks can go across the street to their boat docks, does any of that stuff change, or is the access to what they're entitled to now exactly the same?
From what we see, basically, it's all contained within the city right away then.
Okay.
So it's basically, utilizing that right. It's utilizing the city's right away on that one. Yes, basically people have used the city right away, possibly to park their cars and stuff like that in there. But it's
Right.
again, we're looking at from a city standpoint of the public right away and looking at a project utilizing our city right away. Then there's still certain areas you go south on there. It's larger parts of land that basically on the east side. Then they would still be able to park their cars there. We check with DOT. Yes, you can travel over the trail and park on there, on that side then. So there's basically, we've looked at the concept plan. We talked with DOT about no curbing proposed. There's no curbing proposed. So basically in terms of the flat surface that you've got right now is similar in that case then.
And Councilman Stiltner, I think you get it, but when we construct, if we do construct, it will take away 5 feet of a piece of land they have an option to play around with now. It'll be a trail instead of a place where they can, drop their kayak off or park their car or that. 5 feet more of public right-of-way will disappear and become a trail that they now enjoy it as their option. So that is what gets removed as part of a trail.
I understand that, but what I want to make sure is I want to clarify
that the property rights that every property owner down there has now, today, will not change. They still have access.
They still
to
have
those-
access.
Okay.
Access on there. They still have the ability to build docks, access docks
Okay.
on that side, or even construct fences within their property that they
Okay.
own on their of course, it's whatever they own on their surveys. Some of those fences, we're not sure where those, line up there, but they would still have the right to utilize the property that they own.
Right.
And construct the docks and use that then.
Okay. And in the trail, like in the concept, I think it shows 10 to 12 foot wide trail. Where does that width come from? Does DOT have a
They haven't
minimum?
set standards then.
Okay.
I think we can go down to 8 feet in certain areas for a certain distance due to constrained areas then. But the goal is to get that 12-foot width then as part of their design there. So they've got those options for a little bit less then, but again, it's got to meet criteria then.
Okay.
Okay.
And trees are part of that criteria?
Basically, the trees would, be part of the removal in order to get that pavement in there for
Okay.
that area then. Again, that would just be the trees within our right-of-way, which is, that would not be trees that are on private property.
I got you.
Got to admit though that the tree canopy and those trees are part of the appeal. What else you got, Scott?
And on that note, are there areas down through there where additional palm trees could be replanted? Because it sounds like the right-of-way ranges from 33 feet to 50 feet in some places.
Yeah, there's going to be there might be areas basically as it gets the wider right of way there,
Okay.
where additional palms could possibly be planted. I think we got to basically get those plans in there. It could be on either side of the right of way. There would be room that could situate palms there.
It seems like that would still be difficult because you're using up most of the right of way.
Well, there's also the parkage on the other side. I mean, if the concern is basically getting trees, then there's plenty of parkage on that side, on the west side, then between the edge of pavement and sometimes existing sidewalk, where trees could be planted there too. So in terms of utilizing the entire right of way, there's basically some options to replant trees. It's not going to be the exact same location, but it could be within the city's right of way, or it might be clusters in certain areas where we've got wider right of way. Like I said, the right of way, varies quite a bit throughout that area then.
Okay.
You
Good
got
for
it?
now.
Drew, you got everything?
One other question,
I down the line.
I see the proposed width of the trail. What's the minimum paved the
I think
road?
we're looking for minimum 10 feet.
The minimum paved surface would be 10 feet, and that would more or less be in where we have the 33 feet of right-of-way. Would it be a little wider in the 50
Yeah,
foot, or is it all gonna be 10 feet of pavement to drive?
Most likely going to be 10 feet of pavement, the minimum there.
Okay.
Again, as the design comes out and we get more survey information as to the width of the pavement, it may be, if we can, it might be, wider in areas then.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a minimum of 10 is what
Okay.
they're showing conceptually to design to.
What's the width of a single lane down there now?
10 feet, it's basically about 20
10
feet.
feet.
There's some areas where we got 22 feet of pavement we
Okay.
measured, but most of it's 10 feet then. So it's about 10 foot for each travel lane.
Okay.
Anything else, Chase, before we go to the public?
No, I'll have more later. I'm good now.
Okay. Jack, anything else before we go to
No,
the public?
no, good right now.
Just one quick question from me. The median,
Yes.
talking about a 5-foot grassy median up and down?
Correct. 5 foot stabilized grass, that whole area through there where it's the one-way section.
And is there, are there any other median options, or is that the?
We inquired about that, but basically as you start putting, pavement there, hard surfaces then in that area, that basically gets back to, we'd be adding impervious,
Right,
which is more
okay.
drainage issues. So DOT's, their design is to create that grass median as a way to try to minimize, the amount of impervious being added. Kind of you're taking the 5 foot out of the middle and essentially just putting that 5 foot on the side of the road then for that trail then.
How
Do you have
would-
that example, Tim?
Yes.
Well, that additional, that was gonna be one of my questions, thanks, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Will the
Run
end
with it.
project, obviously, we don't have a plan right now, but is that planned to be more or less impervious area?
Same.
It's
Or
there's
will-
going to
or
be
will it be a wash?
There's going to
Yeah.
be the intent is basically to wash. There's some areas as you go further south then where basically we where it's a 2-lane segment where we've got right of way, we'll be adding the trail there south of kind of Niver. There's going to be additional impervious there, but there's additional right of way in there to handle the stormwater needs then for that added impervious area. But pretty much that one-way segment, the intent is to create a wash in terms of impervious, essentially removing 5 here and putting it on the other side then. Because they want to try to minimize as much impervious added then, because that's less drainage, then that helps keep the cost down in terms of looking for feasibility.
What
And maintenance.
I'm concerned with, and I'm not an engineer and I don't even play one on TV, is with road sloping and trail sloping, how you want that impervious surface there, and you want that pervious, you want that to be able to soak in water, but you don't want it to trap water. And during a large rain,
Right.
what I don't want to see is a beautiful grass median, which I think would look terrific, become nothing more than a mud pit. Then, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't know how you engineer to avoid that, particularly down there where we sometime have a spring tide or something
Right.
that already breaches the road. I don't know. That's another question that I have, is how do we overcome that to protect the trail?
I think that's a valid point, Mayor, because when you think about it, the nice green area would really look sharp going between the road there, but, you know, if you've got people parking on the other side or crossing over the other side, or cars coming out of a side street that has to use that green space to make a turn, which they will, particularly if they're pulling a trailer, we witnessed that, that green area is going to get torn up pretty badly.
Sure.
And that's a
It's
concern,
correct.
because you have to use a certain type of grass to be durable.
Right.
And most of those durable grasses that you see in grass parking lots in a lot of places aren't as attractive, to be honest with you.
And who
And-
maintains that median?
As we say, basically, you know,
Us.
the city as maintenance, and as we've, you know, indicated, you know,
We
through
have
the
to
years of
pay to
our,
maintain it.
with our
So we-
CIP projects, we've been forecasting that then. That's, you know, cost that we, you know, knew is coming, and basically knew there was gonna be that emphasis on maintaining the appearance of it, and there's gonna be those repairs that are necessary in terms of those cases. And so, I think, you know, as we've done the CIP for the past couple of years then, we've been programming that in anticipation of that, knowing kind of what we're gonna be expected in terms of maintenance.
And it also is gonna require man-hours.
Right.
We maintain that road right now like we would any other street, but basically, you have to treat it like a park, so it's gonna require more man-hours.
Right, more man-hours
You
and
gotta
more.
pay for it.
Right.
And
Regardless of where we put it, whether it be there or in Spruce Creek Road.
Yes, we have higher maintenance costs, basically, maintenance agreements, regardless of where we put the trail there. That's gonna be, you know, a certain standard, and that we're gonna have to basically do maintenance on those segments a little bit more than we're currently doing right now.
One thing about Spruce Creek Road,
you're not gonna have traffic crossing the
Right.
trail.
You
You're
won't have
you're gonna have
green space.
pedestrians and bikes and things.
Right.
You're
you're
not
still
gonna
gonna have
have traffic.
certain objectives to overcome.
Oh, yeah.
But it does go by one very large, very beautiful Bushman Park.
Yeah.
People can
And
access that.
Tim, can you explain to me what stabilized median or grass is?
They basically use quite a bit of it time in terms of other projects.
Okay.
It's just designed basically with a little bit, you know, stronger base there in terms of on there, you know, underneath then.
Okay.
We use it a lot for projects where basically in terms of getting the fire trucks around there. We do stabilized grass through those areas, so
Okay.
the fire trucks can go on there then.
So-
And also, here there, we've got properties that basically use that for parking RVs in residential areas. So there is the option, you know, to create that. And like we said, we are fully aware that there's gonna be times due to, you know, the weather and conditions that could be torn up if cars are, you know, constantly going on there. And that's something that we've forecasted through years of the CIP to build that in there in anticipation of this going through. If it does
Right.
go through, that we've got that planned ahead of time for staffing and maintenance. I
So,
don't think anyone's, you know, saying that it's gonna stay beautiful throughout the, you know, there.
Okay.
We know there's gonna be repairs that are necessary on that.
So 5 foot wide, we're talking non-irrigated, most likely Bahia. There's not gonna be any
You
irrigation.
may not, you wouldn't be able to put
It's
irrigation.
gonna be
in there.
Bahia, so any extended drought, the grass is gonna look
You-
kinda bad.
And the last thing you wanna do is irrigate it and have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't have, stabilization and irrigation doesn't go together.
And vehicles driving over sprinkler heads
Exactly.
ain't happening.
Okay.
It ain't happening.
Tim, maybe you answered this before my arrival. Is there any indication of property value up or down on something like this?
I think on that, you'd have to basically wait till those houses, you know, run the market. I mean, you can look at basically, you know, I'm sure someone can find 15 studies that say trails increase property values, while someone can find 15 studies that say it does not increase property values. I think it's the location where the trails is used and located on there, on that one. So we can't say until homes start going for sale on that trail area then.
Fair enough.
What you usually have with home values is when you're adding an enhancement, a perceived enhancement, it adds value. If you have enhancements and you have the perception that it actually takes away from value, you have lost value. So it is going to be what people generally perceive happens will happen. And that's how markets move and that's how markets work.
And I also believe the 2004 study, at least the study indicated that it would be somewhat of an economic driver for the river district as well. How much we can't quantify, but that's a macro bonus of having something in the area.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's give Tim a bit of a break because we've peppered him for about 53 minutes now. And then we're going to hear from you guys out there. I'm going to gather from the fact that we've got at least one or two people here in attendance that there is just a little bit of interest by the neighborhood. I know I'm understating it by quite a bit. Generally speaking, just to let those of you that don't know, the rules are like this. You have 3 minutes to speak. When you come up, state your name, tell us where you live, and you have 3 minutes to make your statement. I would ask a couple of things. You can use all 3 minutes if you wish. If you don't need to use all 3 minutes, that's great too for a couple reasons. There are a lot of people here. There are a lot of people that want to speak. And after a while of sitting up here, I ask that you not repeat information if you can help that. But after a while sitting up here and listening to a lot of people, if you start repeating information, it takes a long time to say what you have to say. It is hard to give the last people who speak the same attention, which they deserve, as much as the first people who speak. So get to your message if you don't mind. Make your statement. Also, if you don't mind, be ready to speak. If you all don't mind waiting at the end of the hallway right here at the opening, and that way, as soon as the first person speaks, the second person can roll right in. We can roll right in, and we can keep this moving, and we can have a nice flow, and we can have a real conversation and exchange of information. So if you all don't mind, as you wish. Ben, you're sitting right there. You might as well start the line over here. Whoever wants to start the line over here, that's fine. And like I said, when you come up, let us know who you are, where you live,
Go, man, go.
and tell us what's on your mind. Come on. You know how this works. Pull that microphone up to you.
I really don't have, well, first of all, my name is Ben Toludo. I was a councilman here for 12 years, sat there, my seat is still wet. But
it is.
my problem is I've got a bunch of questions. I don't need answers because this is probably going to complicate everybody's. So let's start off with the questions that I've got. Riparian rights. I own, obviously, and many people here own both sides of that road. So that's one question. How's that going to be handled? East side is all personnel people walking their dogs, walking whatever they got, whatever kind of animal they got. Mm-hmm. That's all being used every day. Mm-hmm. Meeker Place. I remember when I was a councilman, we were going to use Meeker Place. It was back then going and coming. Well, that started the Civil War almost. So now it's one way and it's always going to be one way. Value of the confiscated property. Who's going to pay for it? If you're taking 8 or 10 or 12 foot of my riverfront,
We're not.
they're not going to take
Only
it.
taking
Not
right
right
We're
away.
not taking any personal
Not
property.
taking any of
then.
your
Well,
property.
I've heard that
Zero.
before too.
Okay.
They're not taking
Zero.
any. And
Zero, Ben.
come to Riverside Drive along in the back of my yard, and I'll show you where there's somebody already done it. Palm trees. Somebody was worried about palm trees. I put a fortune in palm trees. And if you remember, or if you remembered Herbert Street, remember the palm trees that were up and down Herbert Street and they tried to cut them out? Well, there was almost a civil war when Alan Green was mayor, trying to get those.
He never liked palm trees.
This is true. He was not shy about saying so.
And then the docks, your boat servicing,
Not touching any of that.
you're trying to get your boat on that other side of the road. Property, people that walk their animals again in the morning, about 7 o'clock in the morning. On Sunday, once a month, they come from church or come from somewhere, and they got Riverside, walking by the bundles, if you will, up and down Halifax, and you can't go by there because the cop's got his motorcycle out there on Oak Street and all the rest of them. And my wife gets really irritated because she's trying to go home from church. And then the last, recycling of, just generally recycling bicycles, motorcycles, and so on. We had a few motorcycles recently. Kids on their bicycles, their little tricycles. Older people walking up and down the street in the morning. And then the last but not least, Herbert Street. We got Herbert Street there where all those mobile home parks are, and those trees better not be removed. I can just forewarn you.
Thanks, Ben.
Hi, my name is Michelle Eady. I live on Halifax Drive. First, I'd like to thank the council for having this workshop for us. On March 20th, 2018, the council made a decision under false assumptions that 90 to 95% of the residents living on Halifax and Riverside Drives wanted a one-lane, one-way road to include the River to Sea public bike and walking trail. I have to believe that if the council knew that the residents were not informed, we wouldn't be here today. We feel that when an important decision as this is being made, the city should also be responsible for informing its residents. When there is a change in property zoning, the city posts signs on the street or the property that is involved to notify residents. So why not do that in situations like this? FDOT's first plan was to build the trail down Spruce Creek. Much of that trail is already in place on Spruce Creek and would save FDOT a lot of money in keeping it there, and it would also be done a lot sooner. The residents of Halifax and Riverside Drives, along with the surrounding areas, first found out about this proposal during an FDOT presentation in November 2018 at the Piggott Center. There was another meeting at the Senior Center in January 2019. The mayor and other city officials also attended the meetings and were shocked by the number of residents who opposed the one-way street and a public trail. After all, they were told that 90 to 95% of us wanted it. Some of us have been canvassing the homes on Halifax and Riverside Drives along with the surrounding areas. We spoke with approximately 87% of the residents who have addresses on Halifax and Riverside Drives and found that a vast majority of the residents, which is approximately 81%, are against the proposed one-way street and public trail, and a very small percentage of the residents are in favor of it. We have a petition with many signatures and are still working on obtaining more. There are many reasons why this is not a good idea, and they include safety issues for the residents as well as for the people using the trail and the quality of our life. The quality of our life we currently have will be changed, and it's not going to be for the better. We feel that the council's decision is totally unfair to the residents who pay some of the highest taxes in Port Orange. We were never given an opportunity until now to voice our concern to the council, and we're hoping that the council will do what's necessary to right a wrong. Thank you.
Somebody will hurt. Come on. Keep it moving.
I don't think I can beat that one.
Mic drop.
With myself and my mother, we own probably one of the biggest pieces
Tell
of
us who
property.
you are, okay?
Craig Gittner is my name. We own 5100, 5120, 5128, and we have 5121 that's really on Ridgewood but contiguous down to the road. First moved in there in 1968, and the last piece of property my mother just bought last year, over $1 million, and part of it's really unique. I think everybody should go down on Halifax Riverside. It's beautiful, but it's a perfect thing already. Everybody can go down there and do what they're trying to oppose or trying to get you to do now, to add, basically build a park in front of our property. If my mom wants to go out there and have a cup of coffee in the morning, you know, it's a tranquil, nice road, but everybody can go down there. I drive down that road every morning to work. and it's beautiful, and everybody should go down there, but everybody can go down there now. So if it's not broken, why are you trying to fix it? It's perfect the way it is. It's a historic, nice road, and I don't see why we would go down there and approach any of these things. Amongst these pieces of property, we paid $43,000 last year in property taxes. And whether it's 2 trees or 280 trees, why are we changing anything? And I am really opposed to what we're trying to do there. Beautiful street, and it's perfect the way it is. So I don't see all the commotion in trying to tear it up, put something in there, taxes, maintenance. Again, the security, who's really going to take care of that? At the other meeting, Tim brought up off-site parking with signs, trying to get people to come down there. Like, we're going to take this really great road and turn it into a parade route 365 days out of the year. Anybody that wants to go down there now is allowed to go down there now. But I don't see this off-street parking and, again, in different places that may be improvement to the area for some of these parks, but basically it's not just a bike path, it's a linear park. It's not just bicyclists, it's anybody. How do you stop people from coming down there and playing ball, bringing a picnic basket, sitting down there in a lounge chair? I mean, all this stuff is going to be allowed, and what kind of security is there going to be even to, then there's litter, and then the next thing, are they going to put in bathrooms? I mean, how far do you go? Because it is going to be a park, not just a bike path down there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Tracy.
you.
Who's next?
Hi, my name is Lonnie Richards. I live on Riverside Drive, and I'm going to stand for the project. I come from Washington, D.C., and after living in Washington, where I lived with a bike path right behind my house, and my property values reflected that, as in they were higher than the other homes in the area, I moved to Palm Beach County in South Florida. And there they had, along the entire waterfront, essentially, they had bike paths that were connected to other bike paths and to commercial areas. And one of the things I liked most as a cyclist was being able to hop on my bike and get on a bike path and go sit at a cafe 10 miles down the road or 5 miles the other direction. So I think that if we look at this and address this as an opportunity instead of something that threatens our lives, that we have a lot of opportunity to increase the commercial aspect of Port Orange, to have a place where people can get together and be a community and enjoy the outdoors. Currently, people can access the road along Riverside Drive, and they do. They bike on it just like they will if there were a bike path. The biggest difference is that we won't have two-way traffic. I have a circular drive, and for me to get into my circular drive, it's actually easier for me to get in there from the south direction because of the way the trees are. So with the street going south, I probably will have the hardest change for me will be getting into my own home. I have to go a block north to be able to get into one side of the driveway and from the north side, and I can't get in at all from the other direction without actually encroaching in on the other lane currently, so I know once that lane's gone, I won't be able to do it. But I still support the project, and I think that it's a positive thing. I don't see people camping out in the right-of-way now. I don't expect them to do it in the future. So I support the project, and I think that if we use it as an opportunity, we could maybe even connect it into the Spruce Creek Trail and create a bike loop that people could take advantage of. One thing that's better than an out and back trail is certainly a loop. So why not spread it around? That's my stance.
Thanks,
Thank
Lonnie.
you. Come on now.
Who's next? Come on.
Respect, please, people.
My name is Kelly Hall. I live at 4246 Halifax Drive. The first thing I want to say is thank you to the mayor and the members of the council and the city manager for becoming so involved in this issue, because you were kind of inundated with some negative thoughts about this. And You did mention, and I want everyone to know, that members of the council, as well as the city manager, the community development director, have all come out to the neighborhood to actually look to see what's going on up there, and we really appreciate that. I agree with a lot of the issues that have been brought up that are critical of the trail. My big thing, which you heard, is the parking. And we've talked about the fact that we're gonna lose 5 feet of the city's public right of way. And we understand that that's the city's property, but we've been in our home for over 20 years. And we have always utilized that. These homes, for the most part on the street, are historic, which means that they are narrow lots. They have single driveways for the most part. And a lot of them don't have, 2-car garages. So parking is an issue for us. We're a 3-car family. My son uses the grassy strip across the street by the river to park his car. When we have family and friends over, they park on that strip. Yes, if I lose 5 feet of that access, I can parallel park a car or two, or maybe angle a few cars, but I'm not going to be able to fit the number of people that we do now. And we have a large family. We just had people over at Easter.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to put them? On US 1? I mean, there's no place to put them. In front of the house on the west side of the road, yes, I can put 1 car there. That's it. It's a big issue for us. It's logistical. It's real. The second part of the parking issue is, if we continue to park across the street, we are going to be backing in and out across the trail, across the grassy median, no matter what it's made out of, and it's going to get torn up. But it's also a safety issue, because while we still have people walking and biking now, we're going to have many, many more people, because we're going to be encouraging people to be there. So it's going to become much more of a safety hazard when we have more people and we are backing in and out across the actual trail. And I think that's something that needs to be considered. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councilor.
Hi, I also like to say thank you for giving me the honor to speak here tonight. I live at 5090 Riverside Drive. That's the condos, and that's probably another $35,000 worth of taxes paid every year. But I'm going to come at it from a little different issue.
Do me a favor, give you a name for the record.
Lawrence Smith.
Thanks.
Usage of funds. It would be great in some respects. Usage of funds. It would be great in some respects to do what you would like to do, or what we're talking about doing. But I live in a condo building that's built up about 5 or 6, 7, 8 feet above the ground. I don't worry about flooding, but there's a lot of neighbors around me that do flood. And I realize these funds are coming out of here, not out of here. But I would love to see some of these funds put to these people that in the past 2 years have probably been flooded twice, because it would go a lot more way to helping people. I see minimal increase in people walking along that street if you extend it to Spruce Creek, because there's not that many people on Spruce Creek now. The only people I see that will use that street in that way that you want to use it, or we're being proposed to use it, is the bikers that come through. And those bikers are breaking the speed limit. Okay, they're going over 25 miles an hour. And there's a couple back there that I saw the other day that were in their low bikes. And he was in the right lane, I was walking like this. He was in the right lane, he wanted to go left into his driveway. All of a sudden, just after he made his turn, one of the bikers yelled out, "Left!" meaning coming through on the left. Within seconds, okay, that he would have been hit. So it's not really increasing safety at all. I don't feel that, because I think mostly the increase will be through bikers. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on. Yeah, come on.
Hello, I'm going to read mine. I'm Dawn Aquino at 4230 Halifax Drive.
Pull the mic down a little
Thank
closer.
you for having us. Is that better?
You got to get a little closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
4230 Halifax Drive, Dawn Aquino. My concerns with the proposed path on Halifax and Riverside Drive start with the fact that the residents of our street were not notified of the one-way road being passed on July 17, 2018. That the project would include eliminating one traffic lane and turning the remainder lane into a one-way southbound for vehicles. There were no advertisements of this posting to notify us of the one-way road proposal on any agenda. The city posts yellow signs usually for rezoning and changes like that, and nothing that was done for us. And it will greatly impact the change, of how we drive down the road. My house, I will have to always come down through Aunt Catfish. I can't use a side street. And I think there's probably about 25 houses from Halifax to Fox with 2 cars, maybe 3 people that live in that residence that might have cars, adding probably 48 to 50 more people coming to Aunt Catfish, that way, and traveling. I lost my train of thought. Hang on. That add an already congested traffic turning in front of the customers pulling in and out of Aunt Catfish, who stop in the middle of the road as they let people out of their cars. I and other residents have frequently been almost rear-ended or hit the vehicles ahead of us while restaurant patrons let pedestrians cross in the middle of the road. That's a big issue. And that's the only way I'm able to come home from work, for out to dinner or anything. And I'm not alone. There's the others. And then you've got beach access during the summer when people are cutting through to avoid the Dunlawton light, cutting through our street. And then you still have people with the restaurant, patronizing the restaurant, which does a wonderful business, but it's still going to impact us as a one-way south road. And then I also had about the service trucks, but the other thing is on our driveway was built to code. Most of them are single lane. Our street is not a wide one. In fact, it is extremely narrow. When pulling in and out of our driveways, we must utilize both lanes, especially the lane on the east side of the road where the proposed trail would be. A single one-way lane will not provide significant radiance and safety to pedestrians. So thank you.
I think we got the gist of it. Thanks, all.
Good afternoon, Pete Netta, 5006 Riverside Drive. Thanks for the opportunity. Just a single question. Has there any thought or consideration been given to, during the construction, if it comes to fruition down Riverside or Halifax, that the excess construction material or can bring in to do a like-kind replacement on the riparian on the east side of the walk or the trail? Like on several parts of Riverside Drive or Halifax, there's severe erosion as it goes on. So right now, as a citizen, you enjoy the flat cities right away. So as we go through this process, is there any chance or opportunity to leverage the state in mitigation of
Until it's
doing that?
engineered, the bottom line is, I don't know, because
Okay.
it hasn't been engineered, we don't know.
We'll consider it an option if it's feasible, if we can do it. Absolutely.
Right.
Pete.
Thank you.
Concept.
Point.
Doing the ladies first thing? Good job.
Hi, I'm Annette Crowha. I live at 5216 Riverside Drive. My main concern is that we're one of the properties that has very little land that's between the road and the dock, and which would result, I believe, in virtually no space between the end of that bike path and the dock, which my concern is that people will just naturally just walk onto the dock. My no trespassing and private property don't seem to impact anybody anyway, but I think it will just make it almost like, oh, we can just walk out here, maybe not even understanding that it's private property or thinking it's part of, some walkout or boardwalk. And then the other thing is, I'm convinced that the center greenery, majority of people have SUVs today, and so even as they turn, it won't just be run over by the emergency vehicles that aren't there all the time, but regular. It'll just look unsightly very quickly. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Farley Newland. I live at 4390 Halifax Drive. I'm new down there. I've only owned the house for 7 years. It's one of the oldest houses down there. I don't know if you guys even think about your hurricanes that you have going on. I've been there for only 7 years, and I've had water go under the house at least twice from hurricanes. So I could see everybody dumping all this money into this project. Next hurricane, what do we have? We have a mess. And I see, I'm a businessman, so I'm looking at the one where it's going, listen, it's going to be cheaper if you do your other one rather than try to come down Halifax. I understand what this lady was saying about the Aunt Catfish. That place is tough. You guys should really hang around down there for a day, you know, and just see what happens. I mean, I don't see even how you're going to get a walkway over reasonably. You know, somebody's got to pay the bill on this. I mean, and everybody's property tax. I mean, I'm paying close to 10 grand, and I'm like, really? I'm in Florida. You know, you're not supposed to pay that kind of money. That's it. I'm done. Gentlemen, thank you. You're doing a good job.
Hi, I'm Charlie Myers at 4586 Halifax Drive. I made copies, so in case you don't understand me, that was my accent. All the facts listed below are based on research, analysis, data collected in different cities like Louisville, San Francisco, Houston, Denver, and Washington by Mr. John Gilderburn, Director of the Center for Sustainable Urban Neighborhood at the University of Louisville, and Mr. Riggs, Assistant Professor of City Planning and Transportation Engineering at California Polytechnic State University. First, one-way streets are bad for everyone but speeding cars. One-way streets are lined with foreclosed homes, empty storefronts. One-way streets are neglected, feel unsafe as you can find drug dealers at night or other criminal activity. One-way streets are unsafe for pedestrians and bicycling. Properties on one-way street lose half of their value, consequently lower property tax and less revenue for the cities. Two-way streets create eyes on street, which again deter crime, so decline on crime. When Louisville converted two one-way streets into two-way street and at a cost of $250,000, crime dropped by a quarter compared to the rest of the city. Property values rose, as did business revenue, as more revenue to the city, sales tax, property tax. Police intervention diminished drastically. After these dramatic facts, do not touch our safe, calm, two-way Halifax Drive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Campbell, 1404 Breaks Way. All right, my main concern is safety. Fire department and the ambulance is on Ridgewood. So I know how it's going to be routed, put on the grass, but how fast is it going to get there? If I'm having a heart attack, house is on fire. So if they have to go over that grass to get to my house, how long is it going to take? How many more minutes is it going to take?
The grass won't be that high, Gabby.
But Tim,
I
they
assure
said
you, they are
they.
fully equipped. They're going to get there really quick, and that little
Are you
5-foot
sure?
grass will not have a bearing.
They love
It won't
tearing
slow them down a
things
bit.
up.
Not a bit.
The ambulance,
Well,
though? Okay. Well, I didn't buy into this. I mean, I bought for that, I mean, Riverside Drive. It was either Beachside or Riverside, and my husband wasn't going Beachside. So I really didn't buy into this. So, I mean, the ones that are being affected are the ones that live there. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabby.
All right, bye.
I was wondering how long you'd hold out.
Good evening. As you can see, I brought a few of my friends with me tonight.
It's nice to know you have some friends.
Yeah, it is. Trust me. My name is Gary Campbell, and I live at 5020 Riverside Drive. I've always loved the Daytona area, and I've vacationed here for over 40 years. I worked for the federal government for 40 years, retired 9 years ago, and 3.5 years ago we moved to Daytona. We moved to Daytona Beach Shores, but as a Florida boy, I always wanted to live on the water. Back in May, my wife and I, Rita, contracted to buy a house on Riverside Drive, which was a lifelong dream. And in August, we contracted to do a severe renovation of 6 figures to this residence. In November of 2018, I learned about the planned bike trail and the one-way road. I had no idea of this. It wasn't disclosed to me at any time during the purchase. Had I known this, I would have never bought the house on Riverside Drive. I attended 2 meetings hosted by the city, FDOT in November and January, and that's where I learned things had been done and that no one was really informed of the real plans. At that point, that's when I decided that we needed to put together a committee that would look into the historical and do some historical research and meet with the city of Port Orange and DOT, and that's these ladies right here that have spent a lot of time putting all this information together. As the committee went door to door, we found out homeowners really didn't know what was going on, didn't understand. Some thought the trail was going to be on this side, that side. It was just a nightmare. As of today, for your information, there's currently 982 miles of bike trails, shared the road lanes, and bike paths in Volusia County. I traveled from Ormond Beach to Oak Hill to Tomoka Road, where I saw miles and miles of bike trails and took numerous pictures, which if y'all like to see them, I have them. The expense of cement, the bridges, the walkways, the signage, and so on are simply a waste of taxpayer dollars in my opinion. And guess what? In all these pictures and all those miles of travel, there wasn't one person on a bike or one person on any of these trails. I met with city officials from Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach Shores regarding their bike trails, paths, etc., to see how they handle these issues in their areas. These communities did not convert any roads to one-way. Bike paths weren't placed on homeowners' riverfront or placed directly in the homeowner's front yard. Halifax and Riverside Drive has historical homes, and it's a designated scenic drive. Why would anyone want to place an 8 to 12 foot path, essentially a public park in their front yard, in front of these homes? Whoops.
Gary, you got my 3 minutes. Go ahead. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Okay. Huh?
Thanks, Gary.
I took all you guys rides in my golf cart, and you won't let me finish. Yeah.
This is what you told us.
All right.
Gary, I gave you 30 seconds. Is that good? 30 to 45 seconds, Council?
As you can tell, most homeowners don't want this on
Let it rip.
Riverside, Halifax Drive. Good
There
day.
you go. Come on, somebody.
Somebody step up.
We're going.
My name is Robert Montalvo. I reside at 4262 Halifax Drive. Okay, I've owned the property since '03. I've been a permanent resident of Port Orange for 5 years. There's a very simple solution, and it's option number 3. Thank you.
I am Susan. Can you hear me?
Not really.
I am Susan Law Bostwick. I can't beat the gentleman that has like 4 or 5 lots, but this is 300 and some feet. It's been in my property, this I can probably beat anybody, since the 40s. So that's 70 some years that we've had this property. Now, my problem really is the fishing, and this would affect other people also. But I have to decide who fishes and who doesn't there. I have it posted. And if, kids are playing or whatever, then that sort of eliminates that. But I sometimes, still to this day, have to go out and explain to people what RIP rights are, riparian rights, because they don't believe that the bank goes with the house. Now, what on earth is going to happen to me when more people are walking up and down there fishing, and they're all looking at it, and it's going to look like it's a public access now. It's going to look like it's something owned by the state, and I'm trying to tell them, no, still got a little bit of RIP rights right there. You can't fish there. They're not going to want to listen to me. And it just becomes, a real tricky situation. Also, I am the last house in this whole section, Riverside and Niver. So people, if they wanted to make a loop, walking, bicycling, whatever, they're going to park down there. At least I would. I would park there and go up and come back. So more parking, more cars. This is, it sounds good on paper. we all want to be environmentally conscious and everything, but it's not practical, especially for the people that live there. This is not going to help anyone to do this. Please don't do this. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to excuse myself for the rest of the evening. Alan's going to take over from here, if that's okay?
You go get your kid.
Yeah, I will. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm David Scott, 4498 Halifax Drive. I've owned that house since 2013. My wife and 3 children live there. It's kind of not a neighborhood that has children, but most people would probably recognize me from being out front. I'm on my dock or on the bank. I'm on other people's docks. I photograph. I'm a photographer by trade, so I photograph all the wildlife out there. So when I hear trees are coming down, that means it's displaced wildlife. Palm trees are a food source. They're a food source for pollinators. They're a food source for birds. Huge flocks come and eat the seeds off of the sable. The sable is our Florida tree. Technically, it's a grass. It's not a tree, but it's still a food source. It's still a nesting site. It's still a source for nesting material. I photograph these birds every day utilizing these trees. Kingfishers, perched, fly into the river to collect their food, will sit back in a tree and eat it. Eat the fish they catch. Cranes, osprey, bald eagles. There was a bald eagle nest. They can testify to it. They even sent me the pictures. You got to get out here, David. You got to come photograph the bald eagles that are right out front, that are utilizing the trees out front here. And you guys say, take out the trees, it's not a big deal, or whatever it is. It's a huge deal for me.
Nobody said
it's
take out the
huge.
tree.
It's huge. Palm tree, oak tree, it's all the same to me. It's still part of the habitat. So that's my concern. My other concern would be if it's a 5-foot piece of grass, how wide is a car? So if a car if I had a delivery with a semi truck, they can't park directly in the grass in front of my home. It's too big. So they would have to park in the grass between the road, right? They'd have to park there. Where can they park? To unload like a sofa or something to get it into the home. The truck is wider than that 5-foot piece of grass, and the truck is bigger than it can't fit with mailboxes, telephone poles, all those things. Even all the trucks are wider than that grass spot. So that'd be another concern.
Where's the truck
Thank
parked?
you. I appreciate everybody being here.
Truck parked now. Where is that truck parked now?
My name's Terry Harper, 4444 Halifax Drive, and I want to thank the council up here for all the comments I've heard. Certainly was very surprised, happily surprised from many of the questions I've heard. Also want to thank the crew out here, our neighbors and everything, and the fantastic job and representation we have here. My buddy David, he told me, he's my neighbor, and you know, he grew up here in Port Orange. He said, Terry, he says, there's something I wanted to do since I was a little kid. I always wanted to own a house on Halifax Drive. And that still resonates with me today. But I'm the guy, unfortunately, that's going to tear up that 5-foot section because I have the 45-foot RV. You guys allowed me to build a nice, beautiful RV garage, and I can tell you right now that I'm going to be in it anytime I come in and out. There's no question about it. And so my concern of what it's going to look like is I think, quite valid, as many of you all expressed as well. When you talk 40,000 pounds and turning, I don't know what grass is going to hold up with that. Okay. Secondly, I know somebody spoke about the traffic, and there's definitely going to be, and already as well know, there's an issue up at Catfish Dunlop. Everybody has to know that. Okay. There's no question. You make it single lane, you're going to increase the traffic there. Okay. Now I'm going to have to get to my house coming through there. I don't have to do that right now. So you're increasing it. Okay. And I'm just one of 25 homes in that section. As a person that's done some building in the area as well, it's amazing to me that we're considering when Tim, and I appreciate Tim's comments, every one of them, okay, but he admitted we have flooding in that area. I don't go and build where I have flooding in the area until I resolve the flooding issues in the area. So that's, that again, I think is just a major concern. And last but not least, when you have an option, I think Jack brought it up and he asked, I didn't hear the answer, okay, and maybe I didn't, maybe it was there, the cost difference between what you're proposing, which again, I think you can see most of the residents don't want to see a single lane down on Halifax Drive, but the cost difference of doing it that, whatever that option is, one, versus what you already have 3/4 of on the Spruce Creek Trail. You know, and again, once again, I just appreciate all your time and everybody showing up for different meetings and things, and that's it's awesome.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
One more?
Hey, good afternoon. My name's Jay Batwani. I'm at 4144 Halifax. I just moved up here about 3 years ago, so I've had the pleasure of being flooded twice for Irma and for Matthew right here at my house.
You're the only one who's ever called it a pleasure.
Well, hey, you got to take it in strides and smile with it. The bottom line is that we don't have enough absorption and we don't have enough pervious already on that side of the road. And I think when you add another 5 foot, 7 foot, and you guys know I'm a builder by trade, concrete does run a little long sometimes. There'll be more concrete than we anticipate. And I think we are going to be detrimental in the fact that we will not have the absorption that we have now, and water will get even more into our homes over on the Halifax Drive. So as you can see, I'm totally against this. Also, I admire my neighbor. He owns Ant Catfish, got a great business. He does a tremendous amount of business on the street. You'd be surprised to see the amount of cars, and I know a lot of you have been patronized or you guys have gone there. He's got one of the best restaurants around. It's a lot of traffic that comes out of there. And now you're going to bottleneck all of that traffic and also the funeral home traffic all to be one way. You have 3 businesses there. You got an apartment building, you got Ant Catfish, and you got a funeral home. Imagine all 3 of those getting out and only being able to go one way. I disagree with that. So from a flooding standpoint, from a one-way street standpoint, also I have 4 children. We really enjoy the Riverside. We enjoy the dock over there. I apologize I wasn't there when you guys were on the street. Unfortunately, I was out of town. I would have loved to meet with you and walk with you. But I'm the only one, if you look on that road, I think, I take it back, there might be 1 or 2, but I actually have a gate on my dock. You cannot get onto my dock. I have a white metal gate that prevents you from getting there because of the problem I have of people thinking that it's their space, it's their area, they could use it, and you know, who's going to insure these people if they get hurt or if they fall? So mine, personally, I have a metal gate there, and I'm thinking by adding this trail, all we're going to do is invite people to think, hey, this is the city area, this is public area, you could use it. It's going to be even more difficult to keep the people away from fishing off my dock, using my dock, and just like one of the people had spoken earlier about riparian rights, they don't understand the riparian rights. So also, I'll tell you, since Meeker was closed, my wife was hit head on. She left. She was hit head on going on Meeker's a one-way road, and people just trying to get in and out of the neighborhood. Already as it is, it's a tight neighborhood coming in and out already with Meeker being one way. I think by bottlenecking, making Halifax one way too, you're going to have people driving down the road in the wrong way, and they're going to hit people. And I really think you guys would need to really think about this. I think option 3 is the way to go. I think the neighborhood's great. I don't think we should change it. So I appreciate all of your time here today, and thank you for listening to me.
Oh, we do have one more. Okay.
Good evening. How y'all doing? My name is Paul Haight. I am not a resident here. I don't live on the road, but I am a trail advocate, and I've been working trails for 30 years. I used to work with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and this is actually part of a proposed national trail. And so I can't address traffic, but I can address where I've been on the board of trustees for a long time, and I've been up and down the country where these trails have come in. And I can say without a doubt, not just in Florida, but throughout the nation, where these trails come in and are done well, they're very good for property values. And I will say that's just my experience in and out. And there are folks that object for a lot of different reasons, perceived and real. But I've also seen places where they've demanded that put up fences, and within 2 months after the trail's done, now they're demanding gates to get out there. So things change. I believe this trail can be done really well. I believe that the location of this trail along Halifax, it's superior to put it on Spruce Creek. And safety is the reason, safety for the users. I think if you have a trail out there in front of the river, that it's going to be the residents that are using that 95% of the users out there. And you'll see strollers, and you'll see kids, and you'll see families. And it'll be absolutely beautiful amenity to the community. So I know there's traffic issues, and people feel very strongly about where they live, and that's all good. You got to balance it all out. But as far as trail-wise, as far as a project, you have a tremendous opportunity here with what DOT is bringing to the table, paying for all the design, all the construction, not out of Port Orange tax money. Well, everything's tax money, but the idea, it's not competing with any of your other Port Orange projects. So it's an opportunity to do it, and I would suggest you look real hard, just insist that they do it really well. The one thing that the river gives you is it gives you a long stretch where you don't have to stop, whether you're riding a bike, whether you're pushing a stroller, whether you're chasing your kids. And it's not the same down on Spruce Creek, especially if you're coming off of Nova Road. So there's a difference between a sidewalk, a nice wide sidewalk, and a trail. There aren't all that many opportunities for trail for contiguous kind of movement. And this is an area where there is an option for that. So I just urge y'all to think real seriously about it. It could really set Port Orange apart from a lot of other communities. So, thank you.
Okay. We got one more.
James Eady, 4350 Halifax Drive. This gentleman was completely correct. He does not live here. The one of us who... And I agree with him the same way. If you don't live on Halifax Drive, it's a fantastic idea, but it's not in your front yard. You're not having to put up with the gentleman, a couple people have talked about their docks and their seawall. You're going to have people walking across that pathway. They're just have their fishing poles, and they're going to be on your seawall. Are you folks going to pay when they start to sue us? Or whatever else happens? That'll happen. I appreciate the mayor, Jack Weil, and also the county commissioner, your manager there. But the rest of you, Scott, Drew, and probably Chase, should take a few hours out of your own personal time to come down and walk with us.
I met with a large group of the homeowners.
Okay, walk with us, whoever hasn't. We'll be glad to show you around. Take a tape measure with you. See what 5 to 7 feet really does, and see what you got left. And it's not the same. We bought the house on Halifax Drive, just like a couple of people said. We like the view. We wouldn't have bought it if we didn't have that. Take your tape measure, see what's left when you really do this. See how many palm trees are really gone. They didn't give, that's a 200. I don't know if it's that many. It's not a couple dozen. And just like the other gentleman said, you've got the wildlife out there. They need those trees.
Yeah.
This Halifax will not look the same if you put that roadway in. I appreciate the time.
All right. One more. Is there anybody else going to speak? If there is, please come up so we can keep it moving, because this is the 5th last one. Come on.
All of my name's Rhonda Nelson Camp. I live at 5286 Riverside Drive. I've got all the same concerns that all these other people do, but the one thing I haven't heard yet is the extra trash that's going to be in the water. When people come along and think that they can fish on your property, they bring coolers, they bring beer in the little 6-pack things. It all goes in the water if the residents don't pick it up. And that's, I've got safety concerns, environmental concerns, but that was a concern that I haven't heard yet tonight. Thank you.
Before I say okay, moving on, is there anybody else? I'm searching the room. No. Anybody but, no. That's it. Well, I appreciate y'all coming tonight. And I appreciate y'all's input. And I appreciate the passion that most of you have brought. So, if nothing... Oh, so there is somebody else to speak.
Well, we tried. Come on.
Now's the time. Is there anybody else after her? Because if not, this is it. I mean it.
This is the fifth, third time.
No, this is the sixth
And final time.
It doesn't matter. This is it. Come on up.
Okay, thank you for having us. My name's Ann Saylor. I live at 5324 Riverside Drive. I'm on a hill. When it gets flooded, it comes across the street. If there's a hurricane, I have to clean it up. My arms are bad, my hands are bad. I can't do it. In other words, I've been here for 30 years. I have a disabled son. Now, when he goes out front, and if there's a car that's flying by, he's not going to see it because he's losing his mind a little bit. He doesn't pay attention. Now, that's scaring me to death. I do not want a one-way street. And when I come out of my driveway, I have to go all the way across the street, both sides, to get out because I have a big van, right? Now, if you make it one way, I have to go all the way down to Niver, all the way to Route 1, and all the way up to get to where I'm going. That's my gas. Is anybody going to pay for my gas? Right? I'm retired, right? I can't afford a lot. And I can't lift my arms, and my hands are in bad shape. So if that river floods, comes over, who's going to clean my street or clean it out off the edge of my driveway? And there's no room on the river to do anything. There's no room to make any bike route or anything up there. There's no room. It's small. It's very small. So that's what I have to say. I just don't want this to happen. It is not feasible to anybody on that street or the whole street, anywhere, up and down. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ann. Okay, that's it. I think. Okay, that really is it. Why don't we start this end, Scott?
Okay. Well, that's a lot to digest. Obviously, it won't all get digested tonight, but so some of the things I'm trying to make a list is everybody's talking about, different kinds of concerns, and the one gentleman got upset at very well when this whole concept first started kind of going through the neighborhoods. There was all kinds of rumors. I was getting calls about the city was taking people's properties, and we were taking down docks and all kinds of stuff. And so it is nice that everybody came out tonight, and I do appreciate a really good attendance. And it's a great opportunity to hear exactly what the concerns are. I think right off the bat, the answer or the concerns about riparian rights and acquisition of people's private property has been clearly answered. That's never been on the table. It's not on the table. It's not going to be on the table as far as I'm concerned, that's for sure. A lot of discussion about two-way and one-way stuff, which I think is pretty interesting. I have a background in public safety and have spent 22 years doing that in the city, have sat right in front of Ben Toludo's house and written plenty of speeding tickets, both directions, south
Why is
and
Ben
northbound.
smiling real big?
I tried for years to catch Ben, and he just was very elusive. So I've worked traffic crashes down on that street. And the one thing that is clear, because I actually rode down there Saturday morning, as I've done many, many times, and I'm extremely familiar with the neighborhood. The one thing is clear is that we already have a trail system on Halifax Drive, and a couple even noted that. But what we have is a trail system that, as I see it, is beautiful yet dangerous, because the trail system exists in the roadway. Not this past Saturday, but a few weeks prior to that, or maybe it's been a month. I was down there after I talked to a resident, and I rode down the road, and I think I'd talked to the city manager, and I said, just one pass, I counted 13 people using the road as a trail. Young, elderly, bikes, walking, and one pushing a stroller. Somebody mentioned a stroller tonight. Both sides of the street, some walking in the correct direction, some not. So we do definitely have a trail system already down there, and I think, and it's beautiful, and it's a great asset to the city and the residents of Port Orange. Clearly, we are a city that is in love with a water view, whether it's at the beach or it's on the river, that's for sure. I think the 5-foot grass thing, I agree. I think everybody's made some great points about that. I don't see how that really could ever always look good. I'm somebody who's recently had an RV. I've got a boat. I know what the backing and the in and the outs and all that stuff, those challenges can be. But just to clarify, the 5-foot grass section maybe Tim, maybe you can clarify some of that for me, but that purpose is not designated at all for any kind of parking, right? Okay, I just want to make sure, because one of the residents had said, how can somebody park on that section of that 5 foot? That would not be parking at all for anybody, right? Okay. What were some of the other things? Oh, backing out safety hazards. I just want to mention that. Whether there's one person using Halifax Drive as a trail on any given day, or there was 100 people using it, that concern has to stay the same, and everybody has to be very cautious. And so I encourage everybody to continue to do everything you can do there, and we certainly wouldn't want to create any site obstructions or anything like that down there. Fishing on the docks and the edges of the road. Born and raised in Volusia County, lived on the river twice in my life, my 50-year lifespan. That is certainly something I have seen all across all of Volusia County. It probably exists all across the state, I don't know. And I know there's some challenges there for homeowners. My parents used to, from time to time, would look out the door, there'd be somebody fishing off their dock. I don't live on the river myself. I live out in a community where I live on a small pond, and incidentally, my wife and I, when she came home today from work before I came here, there's somebody standing in my backyard fishing. So, and I live on just a little small pond. The ant catfish thing, Tim, can you clarify that? I thought that the section in front of ant catfish would still be two-way. And maybe I'm missing that. Could you put that map back up? Because a couple of folks had noted that being one way. I thought the section from where the ant catfish is, the apartment complex, and the funeral home, that section would stay two-way. Did I misunderstand that? Or?
Currently, we've basically got it as two-way. However, we heard concerns with basically being two-way from, basically from the residents. And so there's kind of a split, in terms if it goes this way, either two-way or one-way. It's something we need to further study, basically, to see which is the best case in terms of traffic safety then.
Okay.
Would be further evaluated then. So we kind of set it off as 2 lanes right now with this there. That way, if we need to, we can pare it down to 1.
So I was trying to note like where certain people said they live and how that affects them. Where could the project be 1 or 2? Where does that option stop at? Meeker?
Meeker.
So Meeker to Dunlawton could be either or.
Correct.
1 or 2. Okay. Comment about flooding. The only thing I can assure everybody in this room is that this city cannot do anything to stop flooding from hurricanes. I've seen so many in my lifetime. That river wants to come in and that ocean wants to come in. There won't be anything this city could ever do. We could build all the walls and the retention walls and all the different types of things. So I do encourage everybody to always keep that in mind, that flood insurance is expensive. I know that is, but it's definitely something, whether we don't do anything at all down there ever again, we can't stop that river from overtopping its banks when those storms come in the right direction. So, and just a comment about the trail system. Regardless of where trails go throughout all of Volusia County, as we've looked at this and I've read a lot of articles and hear a lot of people talk, the one thing that I do believe is pretty clear is that the people who enjoy these types of trail systems, these are good people. These are people who are invested in the community. They want to be part of a community. These are typically folks who are very environmentally conscious and friendly. These are folks that are very well educated and very mindful of other people's properties and things like that. Is that going to be everybody? Absolutely not. Some of you guys see those folks out there on Halifax Drive every weekend. So, but anyway, I appreciate everybody's thoughts and concerns. A few things suggested here tonight and mentioned are definitely things that are new to light, and I appreciate that. That's all I got for now.
Drew?
You got the names, right?
Yeah, she has all the names.
Anybody who
who
spoke,
spoke.
public
So,
record of
but
I can't do that.
I'm curious why you can't do that, because you said.
Because of the First Amendment of the Constitution, I can't make you. If y'all want to swap names and make a list, y'all can do that.
I'm just saying though, you said not to get up if someone already said what you wanted to say, but we are here.
you can't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Drew.
I personally don't need an attendance list. You guys have spoken loud and clear to me. I do want to make it clear. I met with several of the residents. There were, I think, 9 of us in 9 or 10 in total the day. I mean, we had a little bit of a scheduling thing, but when you called and emailed me, I responded and we set up a meeting. And I saw many of the things that you were concerned with in that, 70 or 80 minutes that we were there on your front sidewalk. We met in Kathy's front yard, right? We saw at least a half a dozen large delivery trucks, not just like a lawn truck, but half a dozen large delivery trucks in that time. You're absolutely right. The median the grassy median, raised or not, stabilized or not, would definitely take a beating. But somebody was concerned about emergency vehicles and ambulances. It's not going to slow the response time down at all. With lights and sirens, they can go either way. While it's not ideal to go against traffic in an ambulance, I drove a fire truck for over 24 years. Sometimes it's a necessity, and it's the only way to get there. You have to do it safely, lights and sirens. And there is always the possibility of somebody coming the wrong way on any road. But with that being said, as long as it's been going on, we had 2 people here tonight that spoke in favor. One did not live in the immediate area. And we had several dozens who spoke against it. And I think when I talked with you, I had been contacted by 3 people that actually supported it, but the overwhelming majority did not support it. Many, many valid reasons why they didn't, and concerns. I'm going to listen to y'all. Bottom line.
Well, I know there's one thing I just learned from you, Drew. I'm very glad you no longer drive a city fire truck. How much did that cost us?
Accident-free.
Don't answer.
Accident-free in 24 years. Never an accident, never a bump.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
So,
What is the phrase about the blind squirrel in the neck?
it's always a
Chase?
possibility, but I drove very safely.
Oh, man, I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. You'll pardon my voice if it's a little lower this evening. I did have a chance to speak with a number of you folks, and I appreciate the level of concern and the genuine questions and respectful manner that you've all gone about in this. You hear a lot of horror stories of how some people approach a grievance, and so I very much appreciate it. That's what I love about this city, is we can have cordial discourses, and that's what it's all about. When I was training as an athlete, when my workouts were grueling, I used to repeat a phrase to myself to keep me going. I'd constantly say the benefits outweigh the pain. The benefits outweigh the pain. A lot of times I said that phrase running, jogging alongside Halifax. The point of that was, what's going to keep pushing me through these workouts? The idea that at the end of the day, the benefit I'm going to get from this is going to outweigh the pain that I'm enduring right now. So that's the question I got to ask for this situation right now. Will the benefits outweigh the pain? Of course, there'd be benefits from a trail out there. Personally, I'd love a trail out there. And we could argue all day whether or not there'd be benefits from it. The question is, would the benefits outweigh the pain and inconvenience that's going to be caused to many of you right at your very home? And one thing I've prided myself on being up here since day one is protecting the character of the neighborhoods, protecting the character of your home. It was stated earlier as well, and I would agree with this, and I've felt this way for a long time. When I had made the decision early on to support this, it was based on a false premise. The fact is, however, I'm not up here to push my own agenda. I'm here to represent the will and wishes of the residents, nothing more, nothing less. Had I not been misinformed, I would not have supported this in the first place.
now that I am informed, I would be defiant if I would continue to support it. Accordingly, because I don't want to lead staff on out of respect for them and their job they have to do. I will not make a motion this time, but I will at least give the direction that I will be in support of option 3 and moving it away from Halifax. This will not have my support. But again, going forward, I want to maintain that we continue a respectful discourse. When people come up and people are going to fight for the trail, treat them with respect. They have every right to their view, as we all do in here. So thank you for the many of you that I did have the opportunity to speak to. Appreciate you. Thanks, Mayor.
So Jack, your short time here.
My short time.
Your short time here representing District 1.
Well, I've had the pleasure to represent District 1 for my short period of time, and this has kind of occupied a fair amount of it. So.
Oh, I'm sure quite a bit of it.
Yeah. Some really good people. I got a chance to meet a lot of nice people that live in District 1 and probably wouldn't have had the opportunity had it not been for this. So I don't know if my microphone's on, but anyway. But anyway, it's been a pleasure meeting with them, walking the trail, understanding their concerns, which obviously they demonstrated tonight through their voice. I guess initially, and I told them up front, and I think they'll all agree that I wasn't sure whether I liked the idea or didn't like the idea. So after a lot of dialogue back and forth. I think a trail down Halifax would be nice, but I think you pointed it out very well, Chase. What's the pain it's going to cause to the residents who actually live there? And is there an alternative? And the alternative to me, there's a couple things we can do. And the alternative to me is option 3, where we almost have that section built already. It wouldn't take that much more. FDOT, I believe, has funds for finishing that piece of it. We could do it quickly, get a trail system that connects through Port Orange for relatively much lower budget, which FDOT has the money for, and do it timely. So given that, it only makes sense to go with option 3, given the fact that we have other options along that way. I guess FDOT doesn't like to do spurs, but if you think about coming down Spruce Creek Road, and Tim mentioned Commonwealth earlier, but if you come from Spruce Creek to Commonwealth, you could tie right into Riverside Drive. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's been any incident reports regarding people riding their bicycle, pushing baby carriages or anything else on Halifax. So that has been a trail system, but there's been no incidences there. So I don't see why we couldn't use option 3, spur off down Commonwealth at city expense, that would be, but we plan on doing a lot of that anyway. And then tie right into Riverside. So if somebody wanted to come down Nova and they didn't want to follow the trail system all the way through to South Daytona, they could cut through Commonwealth, cut up Commonwealth there at 2 Riverside Drive, and go north to the Riverside Walk, Riverside Park. So we have options. I think that's probably the best option. It's better for everyone, and it's probably makes the most sense in terms of expense and timeliness. I don't want to get us into a trail system that's Halifax Drive, and we're just bent on that, and it'd be a 5 to 7 year project, and it very well could be. Easily 5 to 7 years, where this possibly could be done in a year or 2 years, and we have a trail system. And that we could tie into it. So by the time 2 or 3 years comes along, we have our trail system finished, and we have a spur going into Riverside, Halifax. So that would be my choice.
Okay. In talking to a lot of you, I know that when you try to make decisions, you try to look at things from both sides. So it does require you to play devil's advocate, because you want to hear both the good and the bad, the advantages and disadvantages. And I know this, having lived here all my life, I loved riding my bicycle down there. I understand why you want to preserve what you got. We all know that when you're dealing with a blank canvas, it's easy to create something precisely the way you want it. And this is certainly not a blank canvas. If it were, the driveways would probably be wider and configured differently like they are in newer neighborhoods. They're just simply not. That's reality. I know that there are a lot of concerns that can be overcome, but I'm not sure that we can overcome all of them, to be honest with you. And the hard part, and I know Scott has said this up here many times on a lot of other issues, is that it's very easy to just listen to the room when you've got a lot of people in front of you. What about the other 65,000 people in the city? So I have to weigh that too, honestly. I was elected to consider this from all angles for everybody. The big question for me is, does what 65,000 people gain worth the cost of what the neighborhood has to give up? And I'm thinking the answer for me right now is no. Now, if we could do this differently, and we're working on a blank slate, and we didn't have a lot of the logistic issues that we did, I think you could do this right and do this well, and the neighborhood wouldn't be giving up anything. We'd probably get an awful lot. I'm just not sure that from what we have, considering if there was no other alternative, we might, for my part, go ahead and consider this, because we haven't even engineered this. Until I see the engineering, I don't know necessarily what I'm saying yes to or what I'm saying no to in completion. But there are other alternatives. And before we go further down the road, I've heard from you all, I've heard from my council. As of right now, I certainly, when you weigh everything, I think that I would have to consider the Spruce Creek Road option the better option. And even that's not perfect, because I've got people in those neighborhoods I've got to take care of too.
Yep.
So I'm sure that at some point we'll be doing this again for them. Well, you're here because we told you. We're here because we had multiple meetings. We're here because we've been talking about it for a lot of months leading up to this. There is one misconception that I want to clear up right now. When council passed a resolution last year to examine a one-way road from there, that was not simply to make one-way traffic through there. That is not something that we are going to do for the sake of that neighborhood. And that was attached to this project. Some of you have perceived this to mean that we're going to do that whether we do this trail project or not. And I just want to assure you, if that's what you thought, or some of you have or not, that's not the case. Because we never, ever would have had a vote on that to affect your neighborhood in that way without telling you. So I'm telling you, that's not what we did. And if anybody thinks that we did, we would not do that to you without involving you. I just would never do that. So if anybody thinks that what we did, that's not what we did. What we wanted to do was, in examining this project, what our best options were. Council passed a resolution to examine it in that way. We did not pass a resolution, we did not pass an ordinance to call for one-way traffic on that road in one direction or the other or anything like that. We have not changed traffic patterns. We have not committed to changing traffic patterns independent of what this project is. So I just want to assure everybody right now that that's the case, okay? I feel like that's important to clarify, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Some of you are right about some of them, some of you are wrong, but I think that's the biggest one. I think some of you understand it, some of you don't, but I want to make sure you know that we are not doing that to you. I just wouldn't do that, so I think that's important to say. With that, I would like to say that, Jack, I think your idea of being able to provide a node off of, certainly because we're looking at improving the Commonwealth corridor anyway,
Right.
That's something that we would probably look at. This is a workshop. You've heard from us. We cannot pass a resolution, we cannot take a motion Today is about hearing you, fact-finding, expressing ourselves, having open discussion. Usually when I run a meeting, it's pretty tight. In a workshop, there's a lot of back and forth between us, and there's actually no state legal requirement that I even have public participation. That's not how I run workshops. I want to hear from everybody. We heard you tonight loud and clear. We appreciate you all coming out. Now, before I wrap on this issue, Alan, I just want to make sure that staff is clear that we have somewhat of a consensus that we're looking at the Spruce Creek Road option.
Yeah, Mayor, that's what I was going to just make sure. It sounds like there's consensus to at least have staff start getting with DOT and let them know that our route preference may have changed for them to start looking at that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
With that.
Mayor?
Well, that was one item.
Mayor, just one piece of information I think would be beneficial. And maybe they can send it to us in an email when maybe to some of the residents, or put it on the website or whatever. But when you look at that Spruce Creek option, I think you can be very impressed with it. It's on the a lot of it's on the east side of the canal. There's no crossroads. I mean, it's a clear shot almost, other than crossing Commonwealth all the way to Dunlawton. You have Oak Street, and you have, I think it is that business park, and you have
Bushman
Oak Street.
Park.
Yeah, and you got Bushman Park right there.
It's a great time.
When you look at it, it's really impressive, and I think you'll really be impressed with the alternative. I really do. Yeah.
Mayor, I just want to echo something Jack said a minute ago, because I think he's right that, in like a lot of the residents talked about tonight, Halifax, it's been a trail for a long time. It's a trail today, and it's going to be a trail tomorrow. And the one thing I want to make sure that staff gets a little bit of direction from us. I do think that great points. I think that, where's the low-hanging fruit? It's definitely getting that Spruce Creek situation squared away. But there's a lot of residents tonight that brought up some really good concerns that I don't want to go unnoticed regardless. And I want to make sure, because here's the reality. The New Smyrna side of the trail and the South Daytona side of the trail are still going to be off that US 1 corridor. And I think that, like Jack noted, people are still going to make Halifax a trail. So I still think we're going to see an increase in folks that aren't going to want to go up Spruce Creek. They may just say, you know what, I get it, but I'll just go down the Halifax 2 lane. But that doesn't alleviate some of the concerns that residents are already having and may experience in the future. And I just want to make sure staff is looking at that to see what can we do to help the residents on that street with some of those different concerns, because creating anything or any kind of a presumption that those docks are public or anything like that, maybe there's something we can do to dissuade that type of stuff now, and into the future. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that staff gets a little guidance and takes a look at some of those concerns, and I know they will. I know.
And not just giving staff guidance, but if there's inviting staff, if there are ideas and suggestions that you need us to back you up, feel free absolutely to bring those things to us. So that, and that's true of any neighborhood.
Sure.
We want to be supportive of all our neighborhoods.
Yep, for sure. That's it.
Thank you all very much.
I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. The council has another item to go, so if anybody wants to stick around for a budget workshop, we'll be back in 30 minutes.